I've spent a good amount of time getting walks in now that it's getting warmer, but in Illinois, we've had nothing but 90-degree weather with 100% humidity for the last 7-8 days. And we got another 6-7 days of this. And for whatever reason, just lack of outdoor activity. I just go for walks in between, meetings and calls and whatever. And so I've got a good base here, and my arms have a little bit of a base, but I actually went to the pool yesterday, and it's the first time I've been shirtless all summer. And I was in the pool for an hour, and by the end of last night, I looked like a complete lobster. It was absolutely terrifying. I was multi-toned, and it hurts to touch my shoulders. Not a good way to start the day.
Not at all. Not at all, man. Sunscreen's your friend. Maybe it's not, actually. Maybe it's linked to cancer. We don't know. Yeah. Allegedly.
Yeah.
That cancels everything else. As long as you say allegedly, you can say whatever you want, I think. That's what I was told anyway.
That's the conversation Trish and I were having this morning.
Welcome, one and all, to another edition of Run the Block, brought to you by the Live Rich Project. Today we have an action-packed episode. We're going to get into some marketing fun. We're going to talk a little bit about some life things going on, not necessarily with me and Michael, just in general, some things that we're noticing around the block, pun intended. And then we're going to break down possibly, are we in a recession? Are we going to a recession? Can we get out of it? What is actually happening in this world? Not just because we like to be dreadful about everything, but because as business owners, service providers, local runners of the block, we need to really be aware of what's coming, where the current situation is, and ultimately, if you do have a business or think about starting one, is now a good time. So where should we take this baby off from, Michael?
Oh, I think let's not lead with any negativity and gloom and doom. Let's create awareness on how they can grow, so we can, what is it, like kiss, kick, kiss? Isn't that the method for delivering criticism or bad news? Something like that. Compliment them. Hey, you did this thing really well. Got to work on this. But by the way, these things are great. I think not leading with the black pill, because that's not who we are. So let's hop in the market.
I'm totally with you, except for on that analogy. I've never heard that, and I thought you were getting to some weird martial arts crew you were part of.
No, man, just management systems.
Oh, dang. I don't know that one. I'm going to look that up. All right, let's do it then. Let's jump in.
All right, let me go ahead and get us pulled up here. All right.
To the screen share we go. Remember, guys, this is a video podcast as well. So if you want to actually visually see what we're doing, pull it up on YouTube, X. I don't think we have video on Spotify. So if you go through any other platforms, go to YouTube or X and it'll be there.
Yeah, we'll get to Spotify eventually. We'll get to it. All right, so let's go ahead and start off. This has been curated by our good friend Neil Patel. As you can see, the credit down below belongs to the Pew Research Center. It is from this year. I did actually go into the article and read the direct source, just so we could get a little context on the numbers and what we're actually looking at here. So this is specifically geared towards leveraging social media ads. And, if you're a post booster on Meta, something like that, this will also be relevant. And so this way, we're not just kind of throwing the crap at the wall and seeing what sticks, because we want to be a little bit surgical and targeted in our approach so we can be a bit more efficient. So the column that we see on the left, social media platform used by age group, and then on the right, we have it by gender. And I'm not going to dive into each and every number just because we're going to keep this up long enough to where anyone who's watching this, you're going to be able to absolutely see this, get a very clear-cut idea. You can certainly go to Neil Patel's Twitter and grab this information, Pew Research Center, or you can just screenshot it from what we're covering. So let's go ahead and start with the context. All of these numbers, this is a survey of adults, anyone 18 and above, who say that they've ever used these social media platforms, right? And so this is where we can start to kind of break down and understand maybe who our demographic is. Maybe are they a mom? Are they young? Do they have kids, right? Where are we going to find these people if these are our customers and clients. So that way we can get a little bit more targeted, so we're not wasting so much money boosting posts and going into paid ads. But what we do see, some of the highlights, Facebook continues to be the he said, she said. We've been told forever that it is the old people platform, that young people do not adapt to it, which is part of why Meta, started copying Snapchat and TikTok, because that's where all the cool kids went. But we can see that even amongst the youngest age group, 2 out of 3 of the 18 to 29 have used Facebook, and it does get a bit higher on the 30 to 49 and 50 to 64, certainly because people of that age group in the upper, crust of the 30 to 49 and certainly the lower of the 50 to 64, we came up in a time where we were in college, maybe when Facebook started, where you had to be in a college to actually get access to it. Or it was one of the 2 social media platforms. At that time, MySpace was dying, Facebook was on the way up. And so if you're looking anywhere from, I'd say, the upper portion, I think if we split that 18 to 29, even right down the middle, we're going to see a significant drop on the younger users. And by the way, this is data in the US, right? This is not global. This is just a survey of Americans. And that's very relevant to most of the people listening to this. As we go to Instagram, right, 78% of the young kids are on there, and then that one steadily declines. LinkedIn is pretty solid. If you're a professional, that makes sense. Same thing with Twitter. We're higher on the younger end, and then, it's got one of the lowest, along with Snapchat and Reddit, for anyone 65 and above. Pinterest is pretty steady until we get to the older one, but I do want to point out YouTube. YouTube is huge across every single generation. And so this is the benefit of going on YouTube. This is also the benefit, and we'll cover this in depth on a future episode, of how you can actually create longer form content that becomes part of your funnel, whether it's top of funnel and you're generating awareness, whether you're recording longer format content that's housed into YouTube that becomes part of your nurture process. Because once people opt in, of course, we have a long timeline that we know we need to build, know, like, and trust. So we have to nurture them. One of the best ways to do that is actually with long format content. So it can become part of your nurture strategy. This is something that Cameron has rang the alarm on for, 6+ years. I've heard him saying this, and it's because it's stuff that we do and it's stuff that works. And so I just want to bring everyone's attention to this chart, because if we understand, do you help the busy professionals, right? We have a gym in California. Most of their client is elderly, right? And so we know that we're not going to try to find them on Snapchat. We know that we have to be on Facebook. And by the way, in the interest of the nature of Run the Block, if you're growing that local community, that local business, Facebook is the platform for local growth. It's a lot harder, unless you're in metropolitan areas, to have a good amount of people that you can find locally on, something like Instagram, right? Typically we would go Facebook because it is so very formatted towards local friend groups, things like that, especially if your target market is I'm going to say the Kohl's moms, the Hobby Lobby moms, right? Like we kind of know who those people are. That's where you're going to find them. If we're looking for, a younger mother who has intention of buying, we're probably going to find them on Pinterest, right? But this is a way that we can start to really break down and get targeted with the things that we're doing. And oh, by the way, the gender breakdown is even more interesting. There's a dramatic increase on both Facebook and Instagram for usage of women, right? And so Facebook, 59% of men, 76% of women. Instagram, 39% of men, 54% of women. We do see that more men use LinkedIn, more men use Twitter, and then, of course, the one that there's going to be the most obvious gap on, in my opinion, Pinterest, right? A typically a more crafty, artsy, possibly homemaker is going to be on Pinterest to the tune of 50%, 1 out of 2. And then if we look to the male usage, it's 19%, 1 out of 5, right? For the most part, these things are going to hold steady throughout the rest of them, with the exception of TikTok, which has a 40% increase of usage of women. And so the way that you can utilize this is to understand your product, your service, what problem it solves, who it solves that problem for, and at what age bracket and demographic are they in. Because once you can start to, reverse engineer from who your people are, then we can dive into this and give ourselves the best chance of being efficient with our ad spend, whether it's on paid ads on Meta, whether it's on Google ads, whether, we're just boosting posts. And so this is a great chart to take a surgical approach when you're going to build that next 3-month campaign that's going to lead everyone to somewhere. And so I really wanted to share this one because as ad spend becomes more common, the cost of entering into it, into paid ads, becomes less and less because more people are doing it. It's a more and more commonplace skill. There's more people on the source of traffic itself. And so now is that time where we want you to start with the boosted post just so you can get your feet wet for $5 a day to figure out what works for your audience. Is it putting out belief shifting content? Is it putting out something that leads them to a 5-day challenge? Is it something that puts out a lead magnet, as opposed to, hey, I'm looking for 5 men who want to do the thing, DM me, right? We know that it costs more to get someone to directly reach out because that's high intent. And so this way you can develop that strategy with boosted posts so that when you find what works, you can actually go into paid ads and you can really, really turn on the gas. Anything you see here that you wanna cover or kind of ad hoc to?
I think it's more or less like, most people probably have these assumptions, or if you pay attention to marketing, right? The visual leaning platforms tend to be female dominant, and then the written, or let's say conspiracy theory
Yeah, there you go.
platforms, or room to go off about a tech blog or something like that, seem to be male dominant, right? Reddit, X, where you can just build these lines. It's not to say females don't use those platforms, for sure. It's just, from this data, it just looks like males are at least more apt to look for those platforms, or at least attempt, because this isn't like a percentage of daily or monthly use, right? Like, this is have used before, right? So
yeah.
It's not saying that this is the break, but I would imagine that the overall daily, monthly use probably leans somewhere in this range as well. Again, Pinterest being more visual, you'd expect that to probably be more, more female usage. Twitter being more rants, more conspiracy theory stuff being more male dominant. And it's not to say, like, guys, just because you see this data, it's not like, well, Cam Michael, I target 25-year-olds and I'm crushing on Facebook. Great. We're not saying you can't. We're just literally presenting this data saying this is the thing, right? Or if you see your demographic and it's 65 plus and you're like, listen, I'm killing it on Snapchat. Great. We're not saying you can't do those things. It's just, overall, if you're starting, or like, why can't I attract these people on this platform? That's probably why. Like, we default to our own personal preferences. Michael and I use Instagram and X. We know that. We very rarely go on Facebook, but we also know at certain points we have to do things like go in and make the Facebook group. We have to go in and do sometimes some things we don't want to attract the people over, if there are demographic and target audience that we're going after. So that's why when people always go, should I make a Facebook group? Probably also depends. Do your people use them? Where are they from? What platform they typically use? All of those things, right? So look at this chart. Go check out the video, or just go to Neil Patel's X. I'm sure it's on all of his socials. Just look for the social media ads that allow you to target specific groups. Just look at it and just start to be like, okay, this kind of makes sense.
Absolutely. And laughing but serious, if you are a younger person and your audience is 65 and over, and you say you're crushing it on Snapchat, I'm going to tell you that you can probably crush it even more somewhere else. Laughing but serious.
I would say the people that may be 65 or older on Snapchat question their ethics there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe you have a really interesting offer that you shouldn't disclose. Moving on. All right. Well, where do you want to go next? You want to dive into the second chart you had, and then get into the share?
Well, do you have stuff to cover from Neil? Because I got a couple awareness pieces, a couple black pills. So it's up to you.
I can go into the data. I didn't know if you wanted to share the other part of Neil's stuff this time or next time.
Next time, got to give him something to come back for.
Cool. All right, guys. So actually kind of spins off a little bit of what we were just talking about. And it was actually, again, we, at this point, our fanboys, just Neil Patel's team's been crushing it on data for marketing and sales and numbers and SEO. They've just been putting out so much good stuff lately. They put out an email, actually, because I couldn't even find it on social, essentially on content strategy and how most people's strategy isn't what they think it is. So let me just go ahead and share the old screen here. Again, highly suggest watching the video form of this one, guys. Let's just go into the entire screen, to the infinite.
You should probably watch the video form of all of them, actually.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
can you see my screen?
Go to YouTube, go to Twitter. No, not yet. See two handsome gentlemen with a lot to say.
Let's see. Oh, goody. All right. Well, let me just describe it for a second instead of wasting airtime. So, your most popular marketing channel is likely the least effective. We surveyed 118 business owners in different verticals to see which marketing channels they prioritize. What we found was troubling. Turns out the vast majority of their marketing efforts went to organic social media. Shock, right? Like everyone that's listening to this, you and I, we know the importance of social media, but there's a catch here. So Neil Patel says, when we analyzed the ROI for different marketing channels, we found that organic social delivered the worst results. According to HubSpot's State of Marketing Report, so if you're not familiar with HubSpot, it's one of the biggest CRMs out there, customer retention management softwares. These are the most effective marketing channels for businesses in 2024. Number one, SEO, 16%. So that's search engine optimization. So like think Google, Bing, those types of things. Number two, social media shopping tools, 16%. Number three, paid social, 14%. Think we keep talking about boosting posts. Think that through. 4, email marketing. Michael, does that surprise you? Email marketing's in the top 5?
Never dead.
Yep. And number 5, then content marketing, 14%. Then he goes on to obviously pitch his services. There's some cool graphs that illustrate that. Does anything stand out there at you as far as SEO being number 1? Technically, the 1 and 2 are 16% each.
No, nothing stands out. I think that, SEO and email are the things that people bounce back and forth as far as dismissing as the next thing to die, but they're never going to, just based on the nature of what they are. Yep. I think that SEO is always going to be intelligent because, and we'll cover this next week, but search engines are still the way. Now, as things have changed over the last couple of decades, now we have Chat GPT. And so we're starting to see more people go through AI and things like that. And that'll continue to rise, and it'll continue to take an amount. That'll continue to take an amount away from search engines. And then I think ultimately, as Twitter X takes whatever its final form is going to be, I think that also will detract. But Google's still going to be number 1. And even though it's social media, the second largest search engine on the planet is YouTube. And that's not going to go anywhere. And so these are very principled things that it's going to take at least another decade before we see a serious shift in any of this stuff.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because the majority of people, millennials and up, Google search, right? They go to Google Maps, they look what's near me, they type in how to get fit, right? Mm-hmm. What's the color of my poop? Whatever it is, right? Like they're into Google, and then you're searching those key terms. Below millennials, then you start into people being more used to possibly going to something like TikTok. And we've covered a little bit of this before. Mm-hmm. So you're right. I think until millennials are aged out, or until AI completely just changes everything, you're going to see this still be there. And millennials should be in their key spending era, meaning like technically, all economy aside, millennials and Gen Xers should have the most money that they, not necessarily that they'll ever have, but they should be in their highest spending years because they possibly either have like started a family, they maybe have a home, those types of things. So like they're trying to now spend more. Again, economy aside, guys, we get it. It's tough out there. We get it. But we should be in those. So if you're, someone that's targeting millennials, Gen Xers, you're probably good, but you need to also know, just like we covered a second ago on who's using social media and the age groups, you also need to know who's doing the original searching, because searching is a higher intent than just going onto social media and then competing with everybody, right? Like if you're ranking for keywords in nutrition coaching or construction or plumbing, whatever your thing is, that's huge, right? If you can get the top 3, ads whenever you search for something, or get into, as they evolve AI, like a reference from AI, because however they decide to rank those sites and those tools and those YouTube videos, you're going to be just set. It's going to be really great. And hopefully eventually AI just like gives a summary of your video and then they can watch for more. So SEO being one, I thought it was cool, the social media shopping tool aspect. You mentioned X. We know X is now going to be starting to take payments soon. We've seen Instagram over the last year evolve and add the shopping tool, because even people that, we listen to that aren't e-commerce brands, like think of PBD, right? You can technically just go click his link in bio and buy a shirt from Instagram. And so I think those tools are going to really just start to be pushed more and more. And so those social media companies can recoup some money that maybe they're going to either lose on ad spend because people don't know what they're doing, or advertising dollars as it gets dispersed around because of AI and the disruption that's coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other social media shop that we should probably point out that's growing and is only going to continue to grow is TikTok Shop.
Yeah, that's a great point.
It's only getting bigger, and it's only going to get bigger because, again, this is where the younger generations are, and that's how they're utilizing it. So if you're selling a product, if you're selling a nifty line of hats or whatever your thing is, and you're targeting younger people, TikTok Shop has the possibility to be huge for you. Now, I will say this. I don't know what percentage they take from you. I've heard it's not favorable, but I'm going to tell you right now, when you're on someone else's platform, it's typically a 30% surcharge, right? Like when you're in the App Store, when you do affiliate marketing, if you're going to have a partnership locally, a 70-30 split is very commonplace. And so if you can ever get better than that, go in, right? Because you are ahead, you are winning, you're above the average.
Yep.
I don't know what the TikTok Shop is. I haven't heard good things, but I will tell you, if you're going to play a volume game and you're going after younger people, that is 100% a place that you need to go.
I don't remember what the split is either. I remember when I created a TikTok, this was, 2 years ago now. I don't even use it, but Stan Store was the big thing at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd initially created a Stan Store because it was like a link in bio, and you could easily get email subscribers as well as like quick links to buy stuff. And I was like, oh, this is super cool. And then you start reading the fine print. I don't remember what the percent was, but then it was also weird because it was like full access to your bank account. And I was like, huh?
Oh, thanks.
What? And so I was like, I'm all right. I don't need to set up a shop on TikTok to do those things. Yeah. So check the fine print, kids, before you set up any shop. And if it is a bank account, directly to your bank account, because you don't have a business bank account, first of all, get a business bank account, get your EIN, go set up your LLC, all those things. But check the fine print when you're trying to utilize some of those tools. If you can't link a Stripe or something like that, that's been proven to be safe and effective, and they're not going to freeze your assets or accounts while you're using them, double check that fine print, because you're right, it's not going anywhere. Depends on maybe who wins the election as to like how that goes, because I believe Trump has said he's like, I'm not going to ban it, whereas right now it's leaning towards a ban if they don't change some of the parameters. So I also want to point out 3, 4, and 5 are all 14%. So we're not saying organic content, or I guess technically Neil Patel and his team aren't saying that it's not technically a viable option. It's just the number 1 and 2 were both 16 each, right? And so what this is really saying is if you're only going after one, you're missing out on a lot. Now, you'll hear Michael and I say a lot of times, like, pick one channel before you diversify everywhere and then just get super confused because everything's diluted. But we've said time and time again, have an email list. Have an email list. It's just an opt-in. Have an email list, send some stuff out, repurpose, send it out. That's it. So if you did organic strategy, you occasionally boost a post or two, and you have email. I mean, now you've just basically tripled your exposure and the chance to collect your first dollars, right? So it doesn't have to be all encompassing. No, you don't have to spend millions of dollars on ads. Like, that's a totally different type of strategy, but it is probably worthwhile to at least have organic down if you're going to do that. Have an email list to send people to constantly be following up, and then to occasionally boost and see what actually works. Especially if you have an organic post that pops off, it's great to just throw $10 a day for a few days at that and see what happens with a cold audience.
Yeah, and it's a very cost-effective funnel to run, and it's very simple because, again, as you pointed out, a lot of it is just repurposed, right?
Oh yeah.
Like the things that you're already going to create on your social are probably the things that you're going to boost, and so that's repurposed, which
Yep.
will ultimately get them into an email list, which if you're operating efficiently, you're repurposing some of your content into a different format and introducing that to your email list. So this is a very simple funnel to create. It's not easy. It takes a little bit of time, investment of energy, effort, maybe some research, a little bit of money to pay for software, not a ton by any means. And this is a great way to funnel people in from top of funnel all the way down. And so if you don't have those things set up, it's time. It's time to get to work and do that.
Yeah, I know we mentioned this before, but it's probably good. We should do like a video breakdown probably of some funnels that we've seen people go through from social media. I think that would be great. And the easiest way to do any of this, I think, is just simply to set up ManyChat. It's like $15 a month starting out, maybe 10. I think there's a free trial. And when you make your video, just start off right with the call to action and hook and say, hey, comment blank below if you want blank, blank, and blank, right? Make it a download. And then you've tied all three together. You're boosting a post with a call to action that leads them to ManyChat, which allows you actually to get an email and then send it to your CRM and build actually multiple lists, which you can follow up with. So maybe we should just do like an actual breakdown on that, on like some simple strategies. Maybe that's our first training. Maybe that's a training, right? We just $5, guys, $5, and you can attend for 90 minutes. All right, cool.
We can definitely put that together.
I think we should. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. That's why, see, these podcasts are even just great for ideation between us. Like, hey, let's just do this training.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
All right. Where are we going from here, my man?
Couple quick, not black bills, but just creating awareness of what's out there. We gotta go look into the mirror and see what we're gonna see in return. So I'll blow by them, but one of them's definitely worth covering for a moment. All right. So first, almost 2/3 of Americans considered middle class have said that they are facing economic hardship per Bloomberg. And so in the survey, the metrics, we've got 65% of people, 2 out of 3, are saying they at least, at bare minimum, earn $60,000 for a family of 4. And they're struggling financially. So 2 out of every 3 people who aren't in the top, probably 5 to 10%, right? Somewhere in that gap. 2 out of 3 people are struggling, right? And we know this to be true. We've covered all of the balloons of debt and defaults that are happening, and also have got great data on percentage of Americans in debt, and 33% have no debt. That piece of pie really matches up well because 33% is 1 out of 3. They have no debt. 2 out of 3 people are struggling. And so that's probably indicative of the debt trap that everyone has been caught up in, where you have such high monthly revolving recurring debt that it's hard to get unburied from that. And when you have a substantial amount of your income going to paying off your debts, it's very difficult to get by with your necessities without deferring that to future debt, aka credit cards. And so if this is you, and for 2 out of 3, it is. It's time to build your thing, right? It's time to start to take what it is that you love and the thing you're talented at or passionate or whatever, and it's time to build that on the side, because again, we've said this before, the worst thing that you can do is work 30, 40, 50, 60 hours in your primary thing, and then with your 1 to 4 hours for the remainder of the day that you have time to go get a second job. because you're taking a small piece of the pie with most of your time, and now with the rest of your time, you're again taking a small piece of the pie. It's time to create your own thing. The only way you'll ever be able to generate wealth is through ownership, right? And so, again, not trying to be gloom and doom, just trying to ring the bell and create some awareness of the way that things are going. And we're going to continue to remind everyone, like, your affiliations, your ideologies, your views don't matter. It's coming for all of us because it's not about politics, it's about policies. And so this is something we need everyone to pay attention to. Now, the one that I actually wanted to touch on is going to be this one right here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add to that because there's a few things that even like I wish growing up I understood better. Even for the majority of my life I didn't have two nickels to rub together, as my mom would say, right? Like anything I did have, I was just usually reinvesting into education or things to help like upgrade my skill sets. And so some of the things I didn't understand though, like this, like if I was in a financial bind, I wish I'd have known early on, like, hey, if you actually have a certain type of life insurance policy and you just start putting some away, then you can borrow against it. Or, hey, if you have these types of assets, you can then eventually borrow against them when you need money. And then you're paying yourself back versus trying to convince the bank, like, I need $10,000 because if not, I'm going to lose my home and my family's not going to eat. Whereas if you had some of these other things, you could then borrow against yourself. And so it's even that, right? Like when we talk about side hustles and things like that and why we're so passionate about really blowing up the Live Rich project, it's because of those things. It's because the average American, you and I included, doesn't understand how to navigate the tax system, right? You and I are really learning a lot of this stuff to be able to share it with other people. But then you look into real estate and all the asset acquisitions, whether it's businesses or it's, physical into real estate and then you look into things like life insurance policies and stocks and how like people borrow against or sell those to pay. And you're just like, where was this at? Like in my 20s when I'm just sitting there grinding away, right? And just like, hey, dude, you need to throw $100 like every other week into, this life insurance policy. That way, when you're 30, 32 or whatever, right, and you need to borrow money, and instead of going and convincing, Chase or Wells Fargo that you need money to start a business, you're just going to borrow against yourself and then pay yourself back. And you're just, like your mind gets blown, right? But specifically looking at this, we've seen how many charts over the last few months just keep reiterating the real crisis that a lot of people in predicament, a lot of people are in. And again, not to get like doom and gloom, but we have debt at all-time highs, credit card, delinquencies at all-time highs, but it's also coinciding for one of the first times with savings being at an all-time low, right? And so it kind of, within the last 5 years, it's the biggest peak in the last 5 years would have been during COVID because of the stimulus checks, right? You saw that. And you also saw some people like invest that money, which is fine. But now because of all the things going on, we see savings at an all-time low mixed with these types of things, mixed with inflation being high. And it's like, there's only so many people that are going to be able to work their current job more. You either have to get the second or third job, which we've also covered previously that a lot of people are having to do. It's at an all-time high for people having a second or third job. And so it's like, you either can keep trying to add hours, which means you have to decrease sleep or family time or something else. Like we get it. It's a tough time. You got to do what you got to do. Or you can start putting some of that time into building your own knowledge to develop skill sets that then increase your network to ultimately start building resources and then ultimately building a side hustle that can provide some of this extra income with something hopefully that you love versus, having to flip couches all the time, right? And show up to a random stranger's house and just hope that they don't rob you.
At the end of the day, what this comes down to is whether we articulate this or not, we're pioneering the future of education. It's obvious to nearly everyone, regardless of, again, your views, that the things that we're taught in the forced school system are not the things that serve us, but actually are the things that enslave us and essentially keep us as debt slaves, right? Which this is a great articulation of that in the real world. And if we ever want to undo this, right, it's all about knowledge. It's all about spreading the right knowledge. In school, we were taught the wrong things. Like, you don't need to go to that many math classes in high school. I'm sorry, you don't need those things at that level, because how many of the things that we actually go through continue to serve us unless you are a mathematician, unless you are a physicist, unless you are these things, right? And whenever we've surveyed, and we've surveyed plenty of times on our own social media, like, do you feel the things you were taught in school are valid? And I've never, oh, actually, no. I've only had one person vote yes, and he was a teacher. So there's a bias, right? Like, that's
Fair.
an outlier.
Fair.
We're going to throw that out of the survey. And so to the people who don't do that thing, who don't have that protective bias that protects your identity, right? So you don't think like, oh no, what I'm doing is a lost cause, and then it drains you of purpose. We see that everyone, regardless of whatever your feelings are, where you're at, you know that it's a bunch of BS. And so that is why we do this, to create awareness. But then on the other side, within the community of the Live Rich Project, it's actually pioneering the future of education and the things that are going to lead to a better life for you, the individual. And then as we collectively do this for us as a community and ultimately a society, right? That is 100% why we are here to do this thing. Ready for the ugly one?
Oh, we're good. We're good. We can always flip and give hopium after each of it.
100%. Definitely hopium dealers, not dopamine dealers. So this is the future, and this is related to construction. So we can see, if we look throughout the last little over decade, right? We have new housing starts. These are new builds. We have completions. This is the finalization of the new project. And then we have actual employment. And this is specifically for residential, right? So we're not dealing with commercial. That's a different avenue, but still, this is extremely relevant and telling / frightening data. We can see the steady increase in many things, right? New housing starts around 2020. Super low drop. Wonder why, right? We know why. But then we bounce back, see stimulus checks, see all of these things. Cool. And so we had an all-time high of starts in 2022. And then what happened? That's a rate increase, right? That's basically doubling your mortgage, essentially. And so we've seen new projects come significantly down, while also seeing the completions rise, right? And so that inverse curve means that a lot of projects are coming to an end while new ones are not being started. But here we have the employment rate. Now look at this gap. This gap is scary. And so what this means is we have mass layoffs coming into the construction realm for residential. So I don't love this one. Banging the drum again, right? Like, if you are a tradesman and you are skilled, learn how to sell, learn how to market. Consider becoming an independent contractor. 3 houses down, I have a guy who left his job as a mechanic, and he started his own mobile auto repair, right? And so he's going to be able to adhere to one of the principles of the marketplace, which is best possible experience at most possible convenience. I'm coming to your door to go ahead and fix your thing. We call that innovation. That is the second principle within Live Rich, RI, innovation, right? So that's an innovative way to apply a solution to a standard problem that everyone has. It gives a better experience. They can sit at home. They don't have to drop their vehicle off. They don't have to wait inside of the lobby of the car dealership for 2 hours flipping through a magazine. They don't have to arrange a ride to and from because their car is going to be out of commission, right? It gets done in your own home. And now there are plenty of different ways that this can be done. But if this chart is relevant to either A, you, the listener, the viewer, or B, someone in your family, friends, circle, network, whoever, right? It is our job to bring awareness to the people that we care about for the things that may positively or negatively impact their future. And this is frightening because we may see one rate cut which is not necessarily the best thing for the market, but we're probably going to see a rate cut coming here soon, which may alleviate this a tiny bit, but I don't think so. I think this trend is going to continue because we know it's an all-time terrible time to be buying a home. And so people are going to buy less and less. So there's less of a reason to start more of them. We do see the increase in private equity firms, BlackRock, things of that nature, buying residential. We do see the increased rate of foreign NGOs or government entities also buying into residential and farmlands. And so all of these things mean that more rental. And so more rental, less need for construction. And the other reason is this: it is now officially cheaper for the first time in history to rent than to buy a house because of the rates and then the associated costs of upkeep with ownership of a home. And so when you are a rentor, unless you have a terrible landlord, they typically take care of everything in a very quick manner. And now that we have more homes purchased by private entities, we see renting being a more intelligent way to go, especially for the younger folks out there. This is a scary chart. And so, again, this is the time to figure out what skills do you already have? What's your primary skill set? Amazing. What does it take for me to turn the thing that I do into a side hustle that I can do on my own? And by the way, if you're a 1099, non-competes are going to be invalid. They're already invalid for anything new. You can't be hit with one. And if you have a pre-existing one, it's going to be invalid in September, I believe. September 22nd, maybe. And so this is the time to start planning, plotting, building in the darkness so that when the time comes and it's ready to go, you turn the light on and it's showtime and you are off to the races, probably local, probably doing solo jobs, very convenient. Maybe you have a small team. You should build a small team if you're a capitalist. But to start to decentralize the larger things where you're giving up most of the cut of your own efforts, right? Like the writing's on the wall for everyone. It is time to go in on yourself 100%.
Yeah, I feel, part of me feels like there's got to be a better way to articulate this sometimes, because I don't think enough people are either want to be aware of these situations, or they don't have time to think about it, or they're just so much stress. They're just like, I just don't even know where to start. Because I almost feel like we're in that time, right? Remember a few years ago when all the coal mines started shutting down and they just started telling everybody to learn to code? And it was like so insulting that you would just tell someone who just loves to work with their hands and like just do labor, right? And not that anyone wants to be in the middle of a coal mine. That's not what I mean. I mean, just like men gravitate towards those types of jobs, right? Just give me an axe, let me go chop some wood, get out of my way. And then to tell them like you're just going to go learn to code, right? That's not what we're saying here, though. You hear us time and time again say like, what are your interests? What are your hobbies? What are the things you already like to do? Okay, let's turn that knowledge into a skill set, and then see if we can't figure out how to market and get you to learn how to sell yourself, and then provide extra income and maybe eventually, a life in and of itself.
Absolutely.
But yeah, dude, that chart's scary. I mean, I follow a few real estate guys. I follow it on YouTube as well. And you're seeing several things happen right now. The amount of housing for sale from private entities, so like from me or you, is skyrocketing right now across most states. Not all states. There are some that have decreased inventory. Most states that you'd figure Florida's a hotbed right now, right? And because of the things that you said, no one's able to sell. But it's also because some of those properties are underwater, just meaning like they bought them in the last stretch of these ridiculous prices at these ridiculous rates, and they can't flip them for that. So they're either having to take a huge loss or figure something out, like renting until they can sell them. And so if you're a buyer and you've got cash at your disposal, I mean, the next 6-12 months might not be a bad time to look. I mean, you're probably going to be sitting pretty, but if you're trying to sell a house right now, like, I feel for you. I feel bad, especially if you're in a bind and you're like, I got to get out of this, and I need to help my family or whatever your situation is. I feel for you, because I'm not sure how you do it. I know people are still buying. You mentioned BlackRock and some of those entities paying cash because they have it, or just people who are wealthy in general are able to do those things. You also see in the stock market itself, not for nothing, but a lot of people selling stock, they're sitting on a lot of cash, including people like Warren Buffett. the NVIDIA CEO, right? Like he's been selling off stock right and left, and it's at an all-time high. Why would people want to be sitting on, hundreds of millions of cash? Well, because they can read the writing on the wall as well, that everything's going to be up like a Kohl's cash shopping spree here in 12, 18 months. Everything's going to go down because no one's going to be able to afford just the normal things. Stock's going to go down, housing's going to go down. And if you're staying there with a bunch of cash, you're going to get things at a discount and then be able to profit 10, 15, 20 years down the road. So again, not trying to make everyone feel like hopeless or anything like that. Just trying to make you aware of things that may potentially come. We hope they don't. We hope everything's great. We hope, we get the right people with the right policies that can turn some of this stuff around. And then we don't have to worry about it, right? We can just slowly increase the economy back up. We can get the interest rates down and everything will be good. But until then, absolutely start sharpening your skill sets. Join something like the Live Rich or another community or project, which we can we announce? Can we announce Live Rich? Can we do that? Can we? Should we wait?
Yeah.
Do we say something?
Let's do it on the next
you want to say
one.
something? Okay.
When we
right.
do the training, let's announce it because, guys, the next episode is going to be a training on. We had put up a poll. Hey, what do you guys want to see from us next? And the two biggest responses were lead generation, of course, and business periodization, which is a completely unique concept that you literally only find here because this is the origin source. And so those are going to be the next two trainings coming down the pipeline. So when we do the lead gen, let's make the big announcement because, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, we're 2 weeks away. 2 weeks away from the big day, and we'll let you know what's coming.
I'm super pumped. I can't wait.
So, real quick, because we're not black pill here. We're hopium dealers. I want to point something out. Just because all of these larger entities, Bank of America, by the way, the largest seller of stocks right now, that's scary. Timing is what we're really talking about when we look at what they're about to do, when we look at the Buffetts, when we look at the people who are trying to liquidate to get to cash. It's because they know that this isn't forever. This isn't permanent, right? What goes up must come down and vice versa. The things that go down eventually over time, a lot of them do come up. By the way, that's how the stock market works. Like, oh, we're here and now we're down, but then we're back up, right? And compounding interest says over a long enough time, we're going to go up, but we do still have the dips. Totally cool. We're in a dip and it's a significant one. But this is the importance of timing and how it relates to success. And I want to cover this. I'm going to give two different sources that back up what I'm about to say in two different avenues. So number one, I'm going to point to Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. Great read. And it is the story of success and how it's built. And the second one is The Psychology of Money, which is a book that everyone should read for sure. And they both refer to Gates. And so I'm going to talk across both platforms on Gates, and then I'm going to talk about wealth in general and time. So Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, these people that we recognize as titans of tech, billionaires, super important people, and everyone else, right? Sergey, Larry, everyone at Google, all of these people, number one, they were born within a 3 to 4 year window, right? So your age at a certain time with the opportunity in front of you is extremely relevant. The second thing is that Gates went to a bougie high school, as you would expect, and he is one of the few people that had access to a computer when no one else did. And so it allowed him to dive in and get far ahead of everyone else because computers were super expensive. Not a lot of schools had them, right? And so the timing of success of a lot of the OG tech billionaires that we know today, it's because of the window they were born in and the actions they took when something was presented. The definition of luck that we go by is it's what happens when preparation meets opportunity. If you have a sharpened skill set, when something comes in front of you, you break through. That's what we call luck, right? Got a lucky break. Preparation meets opportunity equals luck. And so the second one I want to point out is from Outliers, and Outliers is 10 years old at this point. And so we've had a shift in historical wealth, but at that time, we're talking back when like Gates was number one with 80 billion, right? Elon was on his way up and all these things, but it covered the top 200 most wealthy humans who ever lived at that point. And what we saw was a very large percentage of the highest earners in history were born in America at the right time. And so now I'm referring to your Rockefellers, the Carnegies, the Westinghouses, right? These titans, the men who built America. Great series from the History Channel. Everyone go watch that. Super engrossing, incredible stories about these great men who are terrible humans and how they were able to do this, but a lot of it was timing. And so the most wealthy people in history at that time, it was due to the timing of the advent of the Industrial Revolution and the United States being on the way up, right? And so I want to bring this back to right now. I know it hurts. It's painful at the moment. This is where you have to be the opportunist, right? And that's sometimes gets a negative vibe. It's not a negative term. It's like being resourceful. The opportunity put in front of you, we're trying to make the most of it. And so while everything hurts, how can we figure out a way to build success? Because right now, while on the surface may look like a black pill, when you get rid of that capsule, the thing that's clouding your vision, you see it's a white pill. It really is. It's just in disguise. And so for you, the individual, and this is, we keep banging this drum. What can you do? What can you do for yourself? What skills do you have? What passions do you have? Because there's adjacent skills that go with it. Learning the ability to sell is not being a dirty car salesman. So learning how to persuade another human to give you dollars for the goods and services. It's how to have a conversation. It's how to understand people's emotions. It's how to understand how to solve problems verbally and deliver certainty. That's all sales is. And then from there, it's marketing. Can you generate a line? Can you get people to be interested in what you have? If you have a skill that you know you can monetize, that people already pay you for, you learn the not difficult ability of sales, which is just relationships, interpersonal communication, and then marketing, which is just making it desirable, right? When you go out on the street, if you're the young person, you're trying to attract someone, it's the way you do your hair. It's the way that you talk. It's the way you dress. That's your marketing, right? It's the message you're putting out there trying to attract something. It's the same thing with the service you provide, right? And if you can just find out how to get these three things, we're not talking about technology and systems and all that stuff, because that's how you get time back. We're just talking about how can you make more money for yourself. And it's literally that triangle of those three items, something you do that people will pay you for, the ability to have a sales conversation, and the ability to drive attention to what you do. It is literally the best time that we've had presented to us since, if you had the money in 2009 and 10, cool. But I'm going to say since the late 90s, when the internet really, really started to boom, this is the best time, because while everything seems like it's chaotic, we will eventually come out of this. And so right now, when everyone else is panicking and trying to give more of their time to other people so they can take a smaller piece of the pie, how can you go all in on you? Because this is the time to do it. And so there is your white pill. It ain't a black pill. It's not gloom and doom. It's opportunity for the people who are willing to see it as such.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because even if we just think back to the pandemic, right? I've said COVID and pandemic like 3 or 4 times, I think, in this episode. So like this is definitely getting no reach or attention.
Yep.
But even if you think about that, right, and everything that was shut down, it wasn't like everything stopped. I mean, like for a week or two, like everyone kind of, maybe it did stop. But after that, physical places maybe were closed down or shut down, but there were so many businesses that boomed. When you go back in history too, and you look at things like Apple, what was the other one? I think it was Apple, Microsoft. What was the other big one though? There's always that chart, right? When they say Zoom for sure. But like when they were started were like some of the worst times, like economically for companies, right? But they made it through. And the adage there is like, if you can make it in the worst times, you'll definitely prosper in the best of times. And so when we went through the pandemic, a lot of businesses had to shut down. Physical places were down, but so many other businesses just skyrocketed. Technology skyrocketed. Online things skyrocketed, right? And so the money doesn't go anywhere. I guess it's unless it's erased off the map, which is above your and my pay grade. I'm not sure how that happens, but if it's still there, it's just going to go into different hands, right? And they're going to be looking for different people. So you're absolutely correct there. And even learning these skill sets, even if you're like, I don't know what to sell that I can do. I don't want to do an Amazon store. Cool. If you just learn those skills in general and you're good at them, you're going to find people that will pay you to be good at your skill, even in some of the worst of times, even if it's just commission based, right? Because you're so good or you're so confident in your ability. You're like, hey, listen, don't pay me up front. Pay me only on commissions, right? Or what I can increase your business revenue wise. And that is such a good way to even get your foot in the door. That's how I've gotten my foot in the door with most of my best job experiences. Has been like, hey, don't pay me up front. Let me show you what I can do over 30, 45 days. And then if it's worth both our times, let's talk about a contract then. And most people are very receptive because it's kind of like, oh shit, he just stepped up to the plate. And he's like, hey, if I swing and miss, then it doesn't bother either of us. So just remember that too, guys. It's scary whenever you learn a new skill set, whenever you want to do something that's out of your wheelhouse, gets out of your comfort zone. But there's a great opportunity that could be coming soon to you and to a lot of us if you're just learning the right things and going down the right path.
You know, I wanna hop on something you said and tie it to a principle. Money, it doesn't disappear. And we know this because now money is just a series of numbers, right? It's no longer a real back thing in most cases. Money is energy. The more you have, the more energy you have to distribute however you want, for better or worse, doesn't matter, right? But it always goes somewhere. We can break this down similarly with calories. Calories are a form of energy. It's a unit of measurement, just like a mile and just like a dollar. Calories get redistributed. If you take in 3,000 calories a day for an extended period of time and you go for a run and you lift weights, you're going to have an improved cardiovascular system. You're going to have more lean tissue. You're going to be a more capable person. And so you're redistributing that energy through the laws of thermodynamics, which say it can only be created and transferred, never destroyed. And so you are creating that energy within your body and you are transferring it to invest in a better physique and a longer life. And so that is a use of those calories. It transforms into something else, right? It doesn't get destroyed, it just goes into something else. And it's the same thing with money because it's energy. It doesn't just disappear, it transfers up, right? The thing that happened in 2020, that's how we should refer to it. The thing that happened in 2020 shined a light on that. Right? Like we started to see a bigger transfer of financial energy up top. It accumulated and is continuing to do so, where the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. We're seeing that in real time. But then those dollars go somewhere. They are invested into something, whether that is, I have an excess of money, I'm going to redistribute that into art. I'm going to buy art. And now this art is going to be worth more money. Sports cards, collectibles, stock market. That money just gets transferred somewhere else and it compounds. Just like when you transferred those calories into lifting weights, it compounded into muscle, right? Which ultimately leads to longevity. We know that. It's backed by science. And so if you have more money invested, you will have longevity of a lifestyle where you're not bound by anxiety of where am I going to get dollars, because you're investing in wealth. And so it doesn't matter where the money goes. It never disappears. It just gets transferred into other things, right? So this is the time, more than ever, to start to take your input of energy and redistributing that into creating your own business, into your side hustle, into whatever that is. And that will then compound into more financial opportunity for you, which will get you out of this thing and start to build your business where you can ultimately maybe leave the thing you don't want to be a part of anymore. Or now you have a successful job and then you systematize your side hustle, or you bring someone in as an operator and now you're a capitalist just taking the cut while someone else is operating for you. But all of that energy, that effort, those dollars that you invest compound and they transfer into something else. And so this is a principle that governs our reality and it cannot be broken. And so those are the things that we have to look for. When we can apply a principle and say it works here, it's going to work here, we know with certainty, because again, it governs all of reality. Compounding interest, everything that you do, it works both ways. If you go to the gym on a regular basis, you're going to get more fit. If you sit on the couch with that extra energy, you're going to get more fat. Compounding interest is going to work two ways, but it's always going to work. And so this is a principle everyone should be looking for and adhering to.
Mic drop, baby. Right as we hit an hour to 60 minutes, like on the dot, just mic drop. Like we
Beautiful.
planned it, just like we planned it in pre-production.
Just drew it up on the dirt.
Yeah. All right, guys, that is going to do it for this edition of Run the Block brought to you by the Live Rich Project. If you guys possibly would like to join the waiting list, maybe we always preach waiting list. Let's start a waiting list. DM Michael or I, if you guys want to be on the waiting list, when we open up the group, it'll be a legit waiting list. It's not anything crazy. We'll send you over the form. You can fill it out. That way you're in the know when we actually do launch that. It's in the coming weeks. This episode will go out in just a couple of days, so you guys should get this actually pretty soon. But hit us on Instagram or Twitter /X, cam.explains or _explains if it's X, and then Michael _connects on IG. And then are you the same on X? I feel like we talk about this a lot. You're something else on X?
I think on X I'm Michael's thoughts.
Okay. Sort of similar. All right.
Michael's ideas, something like that. I don't know. Message me on Instagram till I know what I am on Twitter.
There we go. Michael _connects, cam.explains on IG. Let us know if you guys want to be part of the waiting list so you can know when we open up the community. We're probably going to roll it into tiers as far as like how many we let in, just because we want to make sure it's Michael said it earlier, best possible experience for everyone that comes in. We just don't want to start putting things in there and that doesn't make sense or nobody knows what the heck they're doing. We want people to come in. We want them to have value. We want them to be able to gain knowledge and skill sets and experience and network and really provide a diverse ecosystem that allows people to be able to live and prosper as they see fit. So hit us on Instagram and let us know if you want to be part of the waiting list and we'll get it over to you. Other than that, have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll talk soon.
Get to work.